You. Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Advisor. Welcome to chapter 2 of Mike Wood's podcast to book series. The present moment is a gift. So I once again have the honor of sitting down with Mike, who is really just Mike. But if you want to add some titles to him or know a little bit of what he does, he's essentially a transformational coach and the founder of Learn to Love Being You. So if you haven't yet listened to chapter 1, which was episode 1, go back and do that. We uncovered his powerful story growing up with dyslexia, carrying shame, facing fear through boxing, and building a really, really expensive company, only to discover that outward success did not equal inner peace. So his journey inward began with resilience, reinvention, and reprogramming the mind. So today in chapter 2, we move deeper. Mike takes us into the heart of what he discovered on that journey, the peace of the present moment, which so many of us struggle with doing. So from a childhood memory on a foggy football field to the practices that quieted his anxiety and rewired his life, this is about realizing that true freedom isn't in the past or the future. It's right here, right now. Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Well said.
Yes. Well, I mean, these are your words, and this is chapter 2 of your book. And man, I want to get into it. I'm so excited. Last chapter was so much fun. And Mike, in chapter 2, you described that moment on the football field when you were 10 years old. Why take us back to that moment, and why do you think it etched itself so deeply into your memory?
I had no idea why that memory I kept holding on to that for so many years until over the last 3 or 4 years, I started having these random moments, these random blissful moments where the brain would stop. There would be no thoughts. They would only last for 5 to 10 minutes, but it was just these amazing feelings. And looking back in my childhood, I can only remember one. And that was one moment before a football game, before anybody else had gotten there. And I just was overwhelmed with peace, with love, with all these emotions as a young kid. And I never really even spoke about it to anybody. And it was looking back now, I know exactly what it was because I've been able to feel it now, 30 plus years later, um, you know, over the last handful of years on the back end of some pretty powerful meditations.
Wow. So 10 years old, and then it took you over 30 years to feel that feeling again?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. About 35 years before I was able to feel that again from 12 to 48 years old. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it took a while. Um,
What do you think in that moment on the football field it was?
I think it was just so quiet and it was just so beautiful. And I was walking, I was excited before I ever got there. And, it's random. I don't know because, I know I've seen beautiful things before, landscapes and in the universe. And just for whatever reason, my brain was able to soak it all in. There's no I have no guidance to help somebody be able to actually turn their thoughts off. I've gotten pretty good at getting single point of focus is what I would call meditation. But getting the brain to turn off, that's something random that I have. I could point in a direction that helps me do it, but I can't even tell you if it was going to happen to me over the next month. They're little gifts, little bombs of blissful joy that are very fleeting for sure.
Yeah. So when did you realize that what you experienced was presence, or what Buddhists typically call satori?
Um, you know, the first time it happened to me of late, I was just sitting on the edge of my bed and I had a handful of grapes and I just reached down for one and all of a sudden the entire world was gone, and I could feel the grape in between my fingers, and every the movement to my mouth, and then the grape, and it was just an amazing feeling. And uh, those emotions that I felt were just, I've never felt that in my entire life. And I was kind of just shocked that that experience happened. And as soon as I tried to start thinking about it and hold on to it and describing it, of course, it's gone. It's just as gone as quick as it happened. Um, but in the reflection of that happening 5 or 10 times over the last um, handful of years and months, I started to realize, wait a minute, I've actually experienced that one other time in my life. And I don't know how that happened at that point in my life, but um, the work that I had been doing was messing with my Kundalini energy, and it was it was a meditation that got taught to me during a deep meditation, and it seemed like whenever I would do it, maybe 4 or 5 hours later in that day, or at some random point over the next 24 hours, I would have one of those experiences, and it's pretty amazing. You'd think I would do it more, but I haven't.
Well, as you grew older, from that 10-year-old boy, you've said that life got louder. So anxiety and depression started filling that silence. So how did that shape your search for peace?
You know, I just became miserable inside my own head. All these negative voices that just wouldn't shut up. It was just overwhelming at times. You work so hard to do whatever the world's telling us we got to do. You got to go to school, you got to graduate, you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to make more money, you got to find the right woman, you got to take care of your family, you got to do all these things. And man, I was doing all those things because I never had a problem with working hard, but I was just miserable through all of it, and there was just it never let up. And I realized at some point along the way it was my mind. I just
Mhm.
didn't know what to do with it. We
Yep,
all get used to those negative voices in our head.
true. So you then decided to make it your mission to quiet the mind. So meditation means many different things to different people. So what does it mean to you?
You know, I For me, it's single point of focus, right? To just focus on one thing at a time and quiet the rest of the world. And in part of that single point of focus, a single point of focus somewhere inward, whether it's on my breath or whether it's something I'm listening to, but it's one point of focus on something using my senses, and that will calm the system down. It'll relax the entire body. To me, that's meditation.
Yeah, and so many people struggle with it, right? Why do you think presence is so hard? So you talk about the subconscious mind pulling us into the past or into the future. Why do you think it does that?
It's trying to protect us. Something bad happened to us in the past, and it's trying to protect us from that happening again. The subconscious mind is extremely powerful, and its number one job is to protect us. The problem with the subconscious mind is that it has no concept of time, which this is also can be a gift, but it thinks something that happened to you uh, when you were 5 years old that was filled with trauma and something that scared you, it thinks it's still happening right now. That's why those emotions, they don't leave. You get left with feeling ugly, stupid, unworthy, or unlovable in that moment. And you just continue to feel that way, and they don't stop. That's where all the negative talk comes from. The future's so much easier to solve because as soon as we bring our attention into the present moment, anxiety's gone. But then again, your subconscious mind is trying to protect you for something in the future that might happen because it's already happened. And it's trying to protect you from a lot of different things. But its whole goal is to protect us, and we just need to understand how it works and we can make it work for us. But in the present moment, it gets put to the side. It's not trying to do anything. And we could just be in this moment and actually find peace and joy. It's the only place that peace and joy is found is in the present moment.
Do you think the subconscious mind has trouble with the unknown? Because I know that anytime that I've wanted to make a pivot in my life, and what I'm curious if you can relate to this, that my subconscious mind is like, stop, don't do it.
That's
Fear. No, you don't know what's going to happen. How are you going to make that money if you quit your job? Where are you going to live? And then the unknown is so unfamiliar to it. Can you relate to that? And do you agree?
Absolutely. Its number one job is to keep you safe and comfortable. I want you to stay home. Let's not go out and try anything new. Don't do anything. You're already safe and comfortable in your, even if you're miserable in where you're at in a relationship or in a job or wherever, it's still comfortable and safe because it's familiar. The unfamiliar is scary. So it's going to always tell you not to do whatever is unfamiliar.
Hmm. It's interesting because sometimes I'll stay in my space for way too long and I won't get outside. But then the thought of leaving my space gives me anxiety because what you just said is like, I'm safe here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the subconscious mind is a beautiful thing because it is literally just trying to protect us. But if we want to grow, if we want to do anything new, we have to get pushed through all that uncomfortableness because it's literally just the subconscious mind trying to protect us.
You know what I'm picturing right now? I'm picturing the override button. Override, 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 override.
The present moment will override it. A little bit of breath work, pull you right out of it.
Oh my gosh. So when we live in the past or in the future, what does that do? What happens to us emotionally?
It just starts to trigger some negative chemicals in our body. So, if we're living in the past or the future, you're going to get triggered with cortisol. And so those thoughts that are popping into your head that are kind of causing that state of mind, now they're going to get jacked up. Now that's like giving them a dose of caffeine or something. Now they're on high alert and they're really going. Not only is it giving it fuel, those thoughts fuel to where they get reproduced, and you get on that thought reel where you can't get off of that thought. But now you're also making yourself sick. Cortisol is condensing your veins, it's stopping the flow of energy, and it's literally making you sick. So, being able to learn how to bring our attention into the present moment there's literally hundreds and thousands of different tools to bring our attention into the present moment. Eckhart Tolle has a best-selling book about the power of now, and it's the only place we're ever going to find peace is in the present moment. And if we learn some of these little tools that can bring our attention in there, we stop the cortisol that's basically making us sick and making our thoughts start spinning at a higher rate. But then we also, when we pull our attention into the present moment, those thoughts actually stop, and you can start to take control of the present moment, and all the fear and anxiety, it all just kind of fades away when you take control.
Yeah, so can you share some of the simple practices that you use if someone finds that they are stuck in the future or in the past? I mean, I had an experience where I was anticipating someone to come repair my car earlier today, and I found myself thinking, "Oh my God, I need a podcast with Mike at 5. What if I don't make it home in time?" And then I was like, "Urbanski, you're not there yet. Just think of the present moment." But how do you do that? And what do you
I,
offer
I,
people?
so the first thing is, to start your day out the right way, right? If when you get started in your day, as soon as you can either get to work, or if you've got time in the mornings where you have plenty of time at home before you go to work, just take 10 minutes and do a gratitude journal. And that's going to shift all those thoughts into positive thoughts. But you're bringing your 100% of your attention into the present moment by thinking about what you're grateful for right now. I'm grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for uh, my fish behind me. They're healthy and happy, and they bring me joy. I'm grateful for the air in my lungs. And if we just start thinking in those terms, what happens is we start to build a routine. We start to program the subconscious mind with positive thoughts. So randomly, if you were to do this every morning for a month, now all of a sudden, randomly throughout the day, you're just going to start having thoughts about what you're grateful for. So you're starting to program the subconscious mind to just be happy and start to bring positive thoughts in. But while you're doing it, you're bringing 100% of your attention into the present moment, and all of a sudden you're peaceful, and it's kind of a wonderful feeling. The other thing I do, I actually give people, I think, 5 or 6 tools, like manual tools, because that's when we really need it, right? When you're hitting that moment, right? You're stressed out about your car not getting done. The best one that I could teach people is the Navy SEALs box breathing. And all we have to do, any moment we're stressed, when we're driving down the road and we're stressed, or we're just in line and we're getting anxious because the line's not moving fast enough and we got 12 other things to do. If we just simply just start inhaling for 4 seconds, counting our breath as we inhale, and then we hold our breath for 4 seconds, and then we exhale for 4 seconds, and then inhale for 4 seconds. And that will immediately, within 2 minutes, it will eliminate 100% of your anxiety. It's just gone, because now all of a sudden you're just calming the entire system down. You're telling them you're safe. And the subconscious mind goes, oh, we're in a good place. There's no reason to get excited. There's no reason for anything. And everything just relaxes and calms right down. It's pretty well-known technique. It's extremely powerful. If Navy SEALs use this during their training, the Navy SEALs have one of the most difficult programs to get through on the planet, right? So about 300 people go through there, and like 6 or 7, maybe 8 people make it through out of 300. And so the Navy said, man, we got to figure out how to find more Navy SEALs. And they spent 15 years interviewing every single Navy SEAL that had made it through their program. And they came up with 2 things that they all had in common. The first one was compassion for your fellow man. And the second one was mastering the breath work that they teach you. And,
Wow.
and, here, and here's why. Let's say you and I are in the Navy SEALs, right? And we're 2 weeks in, and we've only been sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night. They're barely feeding us. We've been doing push-ups in the sand. Our legs are chafed from the sand. We're running 20 miles, and we're in the middle of a
Oh my God,
10
I'm
mile.
tired already. I'm tired just thinking about that.
Horrible, right? And so what does your brain do in the middle of all that? It starts to say quit. And so the people that make it
That's
through,
exactly, my mind just said, oh my God, you're going to die. That's
yeah.
exactly.
So the ones who actually persevere are the ones that are able to quiet the mind. So if you and I were running and we became friends, and you said you're going to quit, and I said, hell no, Lisa, you ain't going to quit. If you quit, I'm going to carry you, whatever. When I'm showing compassion for you, my brain turns off and I just keep running.
Mm.
The other way to do it is by controlling your breath work, and it'll also quiet your mind. The only way that anybody's going to get through the Navy SEALs is if we can quiet our mind in these stressful situations. They actually teach Navy SEALs in the middle of a firefight, if they're losing their shit and kind of just, losing it a little bit, to take a knee, breathe, get their faculties back, and then get back into the fight so they don't get anybody hurt. They would rather them take a knee, stay out of the fight for just a second and get their mind right before they get killed. But most of those guys are able to master it at a level that most people don't understand. But being able to quiet your mind in the middle of a stressful situation. I had a girl take my program, and she had to take Valium to get on an airplane. And she's probably, I don't know, 4 weeks into my program, and she had already been off anxiety meds. And she's like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to use all my tools, and I'm going to try it with no medication. And she got on that plane, and sure enough, it started. And she was able to box breathe through
Wow.
that experience, and she was fine, and she's
How
got some.
empowered did she feel after that? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. And she's got horror stories where she was balled up on the floor having anxiety attacks on a plane before. And so for her, that was such a major thing. And it was just a simple breathing exercise that brought her attention into the present moment. The nervous system gets told everything is okay and calm, and she's able to just get right through it. So yeah, it's really powerful. There's another tool I like to use when I'm outside, when I'm playing golf and I hit a bad shot and I start to get frustrated or whatever. If I, yeah, like life, but it really works really well when you're outside. But everybody's heard the phrase, nobody ever stops and smells the roses.
Yeah.
But if we just go outside and we close our eyes for a second, take a deep breath, and try to identify as many smells as we can. And outside, it's wonderful. I can smell the grass. I maybe smell some flowers. If there's a golf cart, maybe I could smell the exhaust from the golf cart, whatever.
Hey, I like that smell.
But if I sit there quiet and I'm trying to identify all these smells in the present moment with my senses, all of a sudden I'm calm. 2 minutes of trying to identify as many smells around me as I can, I'm relaxed and calm, ready to go hit my next shot or do whatever else it is that, I was trying to do that day. And so
Yeah.
Eckhart calls them portals into the now, right? Just little tools that you can use to bring 100% of your attention into the present moment. And that's really the goal is, because we spend our entire lives, a lot of people spend their entire lives stressing about the past, the mistakes of the past, and worried about what's going to happen in the future. And if we don't live in the present moment, we're never truly living. I talked to my 10-year-old son about this and just being on autopilot, because I notice it in him. He's getting on autopilot. So now, I just talked to him. I said, "Are you on autopilot today?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, but then I wasn't," or whatever. And we were able to have a bit of a dialogue. But most of us live on autopilot. We only live about 5% consciously, where we're taking control of the moment and not letting the thoughts in our head, run our days.
Yeah, I remember I used to drive an hour to get to a job from the country. And when I got to the job, I couldn't remember the route. Like I would get there and I was like, holy crap, I don't remember how I got here. Because I was just, like you said, on autopilot. And that was when I was in my 20s. And God, it was just so routine and mundane and Groundhog Day and waking up and doing the same thing over and over again. And that's insanity when you're not living in any presence. It was just anticipating the next thing and anticipating the next thing. And any type of silence would freak the crap out of me, or I would need to use drugs, or I would need to drink alcohol or smoke a cigarette because I couldn't handle how I felt when there was nothing. Even just putting music on, right? Just having something. Um, it's powerful for someone listening right now, like what would be a first step and what they could do to start practicing presence in a way that doesn't seem mystical or just simple, something simple.
You know, the the journaling it's probably one of the most powerful things. It's very simple, but the box breathing is powerful. It's extremely powerful. I would highly recommend both of those things, and I would highly recommend just practicing box breathing. And it's like practice for the big game. Practice when you're not stressed out. So when you do feel your emotions get stressed and get high, you can, okay, now all of a sudden go into the box breathing. Because what I've learned is when people start to use something like the Navy SEALs box breathing, and let's just say your typical response to something would be an 8 or a 9, or let's just say it's a 9, right? You're going through the roof because you've been triggered by this one thing. Well, if you practice and practice box breathing to where when you start to feel yourself headed to a 9 and you can catch it before you get to a 9, once you're a 9, you're probably not going to start box breathing. But if you can start to feel that emotion, you can start to feel it happen, and then you start to box breathe and you bring it down to a 0, the next time you get triggered by that same thing, it's going to be an 8.5. Your body's going to go, wait a minute, you are in charge. You are powerful. You don't need as much help from me as you did before because you're stronger. And the more you catch yourself in those moments where you're triggered and your emotions start to take over, your system starts to relax more and more and more, and doesn't, you don't involuntarily do the things that that we might regret, out of anger or frustration. So it's a if I was going to give anybody advice to do anything, I would start with box breathing, and 2 would be the journaling.
So as you were explaining that, I was box breathing and I went from like about a level stress of 3 or 4 to like completely 0. And you were talking for probably 30 seconds. And I only did like 2 rounds. And I like could feel the stress level in my body like releasing immediately.
Yeah. When I first started learning how to do it, I got addicted to it. I just started doing it in all of my morning meetings. So the company that I had that I worked for, I'm number 2 here, and I would have to sit in meetings 5 days a week for about 3 hours every morning, starting at 6 to about 9 or 9:30. And I got to the point where I would do my best to not speak for a lot of different reasons, allow other people to speak and whatever. But I would just box breathe through the entire thing. I would come out of there floating down the hallway. I felt like I couldn't have felt any better. It was amazing. But as I was doing it, I was still present with everyone. I could still hear everything. And when I did have to speak, it would interrupt my breathing, but I was still present. I didn't miss anything. If anything, I was more present. So you could do it anywhere. Standing in line at the grocery store, you could do it in a stressful meeting. I did it in court. We had a big lawsuit, about $700,000 of a lawsuit, and I had to go to court with our attorneys and represent our company. And I box breathed through the entire time. I was so stressed out about going there, hoping I wasn't going to screw anything up. It was a week of the most relaxing time for me because I just stayed so calm and present through the whole thing. And yeah, and we won, by the way. That was a good win.
Nice. Yay. It was the box breathing.
Yeah, the box breathing and good attorneys and us living right.
Yes, totally. Your frequency was on point, so the judge could feel that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So, what for me, I mean, I practice these things a lot, so it's a little bit easier for me. But for someone who doesn't, and they're like, "Okay, I'm in. I want to do this." Is there like a reminder that you have somewhere? Like, because I know for someone who doesn't know how to control their stress, it can be really hard in the moment to remember, "Oh, right, I got to box breathe." So, do
Yeah,
you have any recommendations for those people?
absolutely. This is exactly what I teach people in week 1 of my program is to set three alarms to go off. One mid-morning, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock after you get to work or school or whatever. Another one early afternoon, sometime after lunch, and then one at home. Most of us have some type of a schedule. We're going somewhere. So catch one before lunch, after lunch, and then in our home lives. And make the alarms, make it reoccurring 7 days a week. And just in the title of all 3 of them, just right now. Just right. What time is it? The time is right now. And it just reminds us. And I give, like I said, 5 or 6 tools to use. And when that goes off, you just got to pick one and use it, you know,
Mm.
and pull your attention into the present moment. So if box breathing is the one, which is the most powerful one for anybody, because nobody even knows you do it. I couldn't tell you were breathing, doing box breathing. You can literally do it all the time. And so just pick one and bring your attention into the present moment. And the people who do this religiously, they get very calm. Anxiety just starts to go away really quickly. So depression is a whole nother beast. But if you're suffering with anxiety and you start to use these tools on a regular basis, you're going to watch your anxiety levels just go through the floor. Like you're going to get anxiety under control really quickly.
Yeah. Man, the world would be such a better place if people learned how to handle the everyday stresses just with more practicality, and the tools that you're sharing with the world allow people to get there. Because like you said, you need to practice them and then the body adjusts and then you practice them more and then suddenly you're in a burning building and you're like, oh, I'm not afraid, and that's the body's stress response being, conditioned. Tell us more about your program.
Um, yeah, so my program is built to help take advantage of these tools. When I was kind of coming on the back end of my anxiety and depression and just basically fed up with it, it was all work driven, and so I had solved a bunch of problems here at work where we were struggling at a period, and I used that same energy to try to solve new problems. And one of the problems that I realized was it was me, right? I was part of the reason why we had been failing. And taking extreme ownership of the problem was a big deal for me, right? Taking ownership of whatever the problem is, whether it was 10% my fault or 100%, that was a big deal. But then I realized somewhere along the line that my elevated emotions made me stupid. And I've learned since then that, Forbes top 10 companies, they rank emotional intelligence 2 times as valuable as your IQ. Your EQ is 2 times more valuable than your IQ because when you get in a high pressure situation, you get emotional, your intelligence just drops through the floor. And if you're
Yeah.
able to stay calm in a high pressure situation, all of a sudden you're much more valuable because that's when people need their intelligence. But when you lose that, that's when we all just kind of get dumb, like people don't react the same way they would if everything was calm. And we could all reflect back on our lives when we got excited and did something we knew we shouldn't have, we wouldn't have done normally. And so, this is what my program is trying to teach is teach people how to optimize their best self. Learning how to take manual control of your thoughts and emotions is the first step. This is basically the first week of my program. And without being able to do this, it's so difficult to do any of the other things in my program because it is hard work. This program that I've created, it's a challenging thing. And the first step is understanding that peace and joy is found in the present moment. And from that point, once you can start bringing yourself there, none of us can keep it there. I still can't keep it there. And I've been doing this nonstop for 3.5, 4 years once I truly understood where peace was found. But once we do make it a daily habit where we're constantly bringing our attention into the present moment, like, 3, 400 times a day, at times that's how I feel like I'm living these days, all of a sudden we are at we have access to 100% of our potential, if that makes sense. And that's really what this program is designed to do is to allow people to find peace and joy in the present moment. And then, but not just talk about it. Like, here's some actual tools. If you use if you use box breathing, you will find peace in the present moment. It's not a smoke and mirrors. Like 100% of this program that I've taught is is about teaching somebody something through a knowing. Like I'll give you uh, a an actionable item, and you won't believe that this program works at the end of it. You will 100% know after week one that the peace is found in the present moment because you'll have experienced it. We all can say we believe in God or this or that, but when you know that we're on this podcast right now, there's no that, and that's the goal of my program. This every week of my program is designed to where you will have a knowing. You'll enter into the program and be given some tasks, and if you do those things, you will physically have a knowing that this is working, and you won't have to guess, because when we say we believe things, it it's going to fall off. We're going to fall off. We're going to stop doing, stop using the tools, I guess is a better way of saying it. But once it becomes a knowing, it's like, seeing the guy behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. You're never going to be afraid of that little guy again.
Yeah. And it sounds like you teach people how to embody the change that they need to see in themselves in order to empower them.
Yeah. Yeah, just simple things that we should have all been taught in elementary school. Like none of it's rocket science. Week two is a little more challenging, but it's kind of helps people understand, where those thoughts are coming from and who the true self is, and kind of helps get some separation, helps us understand who we really are. But past that, the rest of it becomes, just actionable items. If you do this, you're gonna gain some more knowledge, and knowledge is key. The smarter we become, and the more we understand about how all this system works, the better we're gonna be. It's kind of like a car. We all just jump in a car and we just drive it, but there's an owner's manual in that thing. But if we don't most of us don't. I didn't grow up working on cars, so I don't know how they work. But if it breaks down, and I'm the only one left to fix it, I'm probably in trouble. I got to YouTube it or whatever. I got to figure out how it works. We're operating an amazing system, where you can cut yourself and it'll heal on its own. You could drive and not even be thinking while you're driving. We are an amazing system, but we have no owner's manual. Nobody's taught us how all this actually works. But there is information out there that's been around for thousands of years that is logical steps that we could all understand about how the mind and the body work together. And we can start to take control of this thing we call the mind and the body, and not let it just run our lives. We can start to take control of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to get into the rest of your program and the chapters in your book. So learntolovebeingyou.com is where people can find out more information about your program. So I have one last question for you, and I don't know why I feel myself getting emotional, but if you could go back and tell that 10-year-old boy on the football field one thing, what would it be?
That don't search for peace out in the world. It's here right now. There's only one moment that ever exists, is right now. And if we could focus in that, that little boy would have been a lot happier, a lot quicker.
Mm, yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing more of your wisdom and all the things you learned. And I look forward to digging in deeper next time.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Amazing. And to our audience, our fans, please do not forget to like and subscribe before you leave today. And listen to what Mike said. All we have is right now. So forget about the past, forget about the future, focus on the now, and don't stress. Until next time, take care, everybody.